here. Welcome everyone to the Texas Children in Nature Network February webinar. We are excited to have you with us today. We are recording our session. Thank you for joining us. To save bandwidth for all of our attendees and for the recording, we do ask everyone to turn off their cameras or mute themselves during the presentation. I will be monitoring the chat, so you can share your questions there and I'll share them with the presenters. Kevin Lanza is running tech for us today. Thank you, Kevin. As I said, I am recording today's session, and Alice will share the session recording in a follow-up email in the coming days. If you're uncomfortable with your name showing, you can change your name to anonymous and then private message Kevin with your name for our attendance. Also, if your Zoom name doesn't match the name you attended with, you registered with, if you could also message Kevin, that way he can make sure he's got you on the attendance list. If you are needing a CPE certificate for professional development hours, please email me after this session and I will get that to you. I'll put my email in the chat in just a few moments. I'm going to go ahead and do our land acknowledgement. Texas Children in Nature Network is headquartered in Austin, and as such, I'm on the ancestral and unceded land of the Tonkawa, Comanche, and Sana'a people. Our ongoing colonial presence on indigenous lands compels us to take action now to counteract the effects of colonization. The work we do through the Texas Children in Nature Network is one small step towards that effort. And I'm going to put a few links in the chat about land acknowledgements and about those people groups for your information. And I'd like to go ahead and welcome our speaker today. Amanda Hackney is with Black Cat GIS and Biological Services, and she's going to talk to us about some really exciting research that she's been doing. Welcome, Amanda, and we're glad to have you with us today.
Yeah, thank you all so much for coming today. With the storm, I thought no one would be here, so I am real happy to have a little bit of a crowd. So yes, my name is Amanda. I work as a contractor. Are y'all able to see my screen okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Just checking, because I'm that professor who starts talking and kind of forgets to double check things like that. So yes, I work as a contractor with Black Cat GIS, and we provide research and education and outreach services for nonprofits and for governmental agencies. And this project is near and dear to my heart. Maybe I'm a trashy person, who knows? It's about marine debris and how we can quantify marine debris to then use that data to make change. So today is all about STOP, and I was not the one who came up with the acronym. It's a little pushing it a little bit, but study, track, remove, and prevent. Part of this project was funded by the Garver Black Hilliard Family Foundation, and currently working on a grant through the United States EPA. And this is in conjunction with Keep Texas Beautiful. So a little bit of background on STOP. This is my friend Dino. Dino was found on a beach in Pasadena. So he's had a rough life. And for those of you in the know, those little round things there underneath Dino are nurdles, which is baby plastic, which also comes out of Pasadena quite a bit. So what is the trash life cycle? You know, I call it feral trash. It's like when you have a feral dog, feral hog, something like that. Trash can be legitimately dropped on the ground. It can be blown out of a trash can. You know, so many ways for it to escape. Out of a truck going down the highway. It gets on the ground. And I'm actually in the Houston area, and we get a lot of rain. Don't know if y'all caught on to that. A lot of rain happens, washes that trash out of yards, out of parking lots, down into storm drains. We get down into the storm drain, those empty into our bayous. The bayous open into larger rivers, or in some cases directly into the bay. Either way, this trash is getting out into the bay, and it's getting out where it's affecting our wildlife, our recreational opportunities. And throughout the entire process, it actually affects flood control, which, as someone in the Houston-Galveston area, is incredibly important. Trash can actually block up our flood control structures, causing worse flooding. So how do we get here? It's been a long almost a century now. Plastic, was developed right around World War II era and really took off in the 50s. There were all these numerical products made out of plastic. No longer did you go get a Coke and a glass bottle. By the time I came around in my 80s, we were seeing these plastic bottles, straws just get handed out all the time. And these really weren't things that had been an issue earlier on. And so it's been calculated that among the 80 billion tons of plastic that we've produced since 1950, about 60% has been discarded in landfills or the natural environment. So when you see a name and a date in parentheses like that under one of my fun facts, that's where I've actually taken it from a scientific journal article. So I'm not making these numbers up. These are coming from researchers who have done the work and come up with legit numbers. So as a result of all this plastic that's been floating around since the 50s and 40s, our oceans take in about 8 million metric tons of plastic in a typical year. And a lot of this is coming out of our rivers, straight into the bays, straight into the oceans. And Jambeck, a researcher out of Georgia, found out that this is the equivalent of 5 grocery bags full of plastic on every foot of coastline in 102 countries that she looked at in her study. So think about that, 5 HEB bags loaded, stacked one on top of another along every foot of shoreline. And you get a little bit of an idea what the trash situation can be like. So Keep America Beautiful has been doing these really, really cool studies. I think the first one was in the 60s, but don't quote me on that. So they literally had people hide in the bushes, watch people litter, then go up and ask them questions. Why? And then they did surveys along roadways and waterways specifically to figure out what trash was and, the types. So they found that there was more litter near waterways than on roadways, which is not a great thing when you think about how the water system works. And our most littered items in this 2020 study were cigarette butts, plastic film, use, chip bags, grocery bags, things like that, and then plastic films. So there's a breakdown there on the pie chart of the types of litter that they found in this nationwide study. And they weren't just looking at urban areas. They weren't just looking at rural areas. They weren't just looking at one state. The quote or the citations there on the bottom, if you'd like to look that up for yourself, it's fascinating reading and just really, really interesting insights on human behavior and why we litter. So we know it's a problem. And I think when you look at the topography of Texas, you see why it's even more of a problem. Theoretically, you could drop a Dr. Pepper bottle in the Trinity River in Dallas, and it could end up down here in Galveston Bay. Everything drains down to the coast. We've been wanting to do some movement studies on trash, but haven't got the funding yet. But everything comes down our way. So let's talk about the STOP program and how it came about. So we were initially funded for STOP through the Garver Black Hilliard Family Foundation, and we received the funding in February of 2020. You can probably guess how things went in March of 2020. We got shut down a little bit and weren't able to go out and do as much sampling together. So we had several months where we weren't going out and getting a lot done. So our data for the first few months is a little sparse. So when we got this money, we came up with some project goals. And essentially we were trying to figure out what, where, and why. What's the composition of litter in waterways? Where is it? Where are these traps? What are physical parts of our environment that indicate, whether those be natural or human-made, where more litter could be found? And why is that trash happening? I can't answer the why. That's going to be some major social research there, human behavior research, but I can work on the first two questions. So right now, we're out to encourage folks to use the Texas Litter Database. I'm going to show you the database in a bit. I'm going to talk to you about STOP, which is a statewide program. Just because I show you pictures from Galveston, it's because I don't get out much. Doesn't mean that you can't do it way up in Amarillo or out by El Paso. So we're continuing to gather data, and eventually this data is going to be provided in reports for folks to go lobby and to try to make some political change at the local, the county, the state level to try to make things better. So right now, I can't say, oh, your data is going to do this, but we are trying to gather enough data to try to get some patterns figured out so that we can take it to our lawmakers and say, look, this is a problem. We need to come up with solutions. Right now, my company is also working on a spatial model where we're looking at the lower Galveston Bay watershed, and we're taking all kinds of factors trying to predict hotspots. Things like nearness to a highway, what the neighborhood is like, are the banks of a waterway vegetated, what's the elevation. So that model should be coming out this summer, and I'm really excited to see what we get with it. So STOP, what it is, what can it be? So STOP is a survey method, and I'm assuming a lot of you, I get a lot of master naturalists on my talks or similar type folks, have done surveys type things before. Whether you're trying to figure out what plants are in a prairie system, or you're wanting to do, you can go back to phone calls. We've all gotten that phone call at 7:30 at night, somebody asking for information from you for a survey. So these are little surveys to get a window into the bigger problem. If I told you to go out and figure out the busiest highways in Houston, how would you do that? So, I mean, you're not going to walk up and down every single piece of roadway and count. First of all, incredibly dangerous. But if you went and took little snapshots here and there and compared all your snapshots of bits of roads, you could figure this out. And that's essentially what we're trying to do. We're trying to take snapshots, get enough of those so that we can understand what's going on in between the gaps, or going on in the gaps, so that we can figure out statewide what the problem is and what we could be doing to try to fix it. So STOP stands for Study, Track, Remove, and Prevent. And this methodology was designed to be really, really easy. It plays well with others. It's actually based on categories and methods used by NOAA marine debris surveys. We're not quite the same as NOAA. We found that we needed to add some categories of items that are uniquely Texan. NOAA does not record shotgun shells, but on our survey, shotgun shells and shotgun wads turned out to be a major trash item. So we added those. But the good thing about this is no matter what method you're using, where you're doing it, we have ways, and that's part of what my company is working on now, to compare these different surveys together so we can get a good general picture. So with STOP, you can either do a subsample of bags or you can track a line TRANSECT, and I'll explain a little bit more about those methods in a second. So you go out, you pick a spot, and you pick up every single piece of trash you see. And you want to get every piece of trash that's bigger, the size of a cigarette butt or larger. And it can be pretty tedious if you're in areas like I am with good old sticky clay. With areas with rock or riprap, you just do the best you can safely. We do not condone you jumping into water or running across a highway for trash. We're just trying to get what information we can and stay safe. Once you've collected all the trash, we have a data sheet for you, and you're going to record the number of individual items there and then report it to the Texas Litter Database. So
Amanda, we have a question, if you don't mind.
Sure. My chat has.
No, it's okay. I'm happy to read it to you.
Sure.
Emily asks, is it possible to incorporate previously collected data into the litter database, specifically data recorded in Literati?
Literati. So when we started this project, we actually looked at all the different litter apps before we came up with Stop, before we did any of this. We looked at Literati, we looked at I think it's the marine debris tracker, and then CleanSwell. And I don't know about where you guys are, but in Houston, those apps are really targeted to categorizing one piece of trash at a time. And at one site, I had 300 bottle caps. So alone, I wasn't talking about the other kinds of trash. So we did not prefer to use those apps just because we had so much trash and there was so many individual pieces, it would have taken us forever. You can totally incorporate it. And in fact, that's a really good point that I need to pass along to folks, how we can take those past records and put them in. And definitely you can you don't have to have detailed survey method or survey data, number of cans, whatever, to put stuff in the litter database. If you just do a cleanup and you guys picked up 10 bags, you can put that in. You don't have to give me specifics. We'll take whatever data you have. So hopefully that answered your question. You can. I'm going to have to think on the best way to do it. Okay. So by that token, talking about the Literati thing, you could do a TRANSECT. And a TRANSECT is where you measure off a straight line, or as straight as you can get with your situation. And it's a good option if you're by yourself or with a small group of volunteers. Really great if you're trying to teach a science lesson with some class or with some students. So you put out a TRANSECT and you kind of figure out how wide you want your TRANSECT to be from the high water line, from the roadway to whatever, and you pick up everything there. And that would work with Literati, assuming you don't have too much trash. The good thing about a TRANSECT is your size can vary according to your needs. I've done some TRANSECTs where we got out there and we looked at the amount of garbage. And we're like, we are not doing 100 foot. We'll be here till night. And then there's some that don't have very much. So we may do a little extra. As long as you put down the length of your TRANSECT, that data is okay. We just need the length in there. The bad part is the TRANSECT's a little more time consuming. If you are doing a cleanup with a large group, you would want to do the TRANSECT maybe a little separately. You have to have your special trash. You have to hide that bag from everybody. They're going to try to throw it on the truck to go to the dump. And it can be difficult to represent a large area like a park with a TRANSECT. So what a lot of the Keep Texas Beautiful affiliates do, so like Keep Dickinson Beautiful, Keep Pearline Beautiful, is they might subsample a bag. So you do a cleanup, and as you're throwing your bags on the truck to go to the dump, you grab every 5th one or every 10th bag. And you take those bags and you tear them apart and you pick through everything and you write down everything. Very glorious trash research. Is so cool. Very stinky. On the subsampling the bags, it's good for large events where your staff time is kind of limited because you can take those bags and actually do the count later. And it's good for covering large physical areas as long as you are trying to randomize your sample. The bad thing about subsampling bags is it's often not as detailed as a TRANSECT on smaller items. And it really is dependent on how dedicated that one volunteer was. I've got the mind of I need a lot of data, so I'm out there picking up every single cigarette butt, whereas a lot of folks might kind of let those smaller pieces of trash go. Not that that's a bad thing. Trash picked up good is good either way, but depending on how focused the person who picked up that bag is, kind of varies on how good your sample is going to be. So I already talked about this a little bit, but your subsampling bags, if you're in a cleanup, you pull a few aside. Don't be biased. Don't pick the little bags. Don't pick the big bags. Try to randomize it and try to get from multiple volunteers, because you will have those that are really, really picking up every tiny piece and some that are just throwing, huge chunks and calling it good, especially when you work with teenagers. Sometimes I've noticed a lot of variation on my teenage cleanups. This is an example of a transect that we did on Brays Bayou. This is where Brays hits Buffalo Bayou in Houston. And what we say on the transect is to look for a high water line. And, you know, even if you want to do these on the roadways, just about every place in Texas has a ditch with drainage. So you can usually see a high water line with garbage, leaves, and stuff like that. So you measure out your length, 100 foot, 10 foot, whatever you feel like you can do that day. And we go from the water's edge to the high water line, just pick up everything. Sometimes the ground isn't nice and level like that. This is Mary's Creek, and you can see it's got a lot of erosion, some pretty steep cliffs, and I did not want to lose my interns that day. So we did what we could up high, and this was actually after a recent flood, and our high water line was actually up here in the trees quite a bit. So just do what you can. Data is data. No data is, well, no data is okay, but any kind of data is better than no data. And this particular area is White Oak Bayou here in Houston. It's one of my interns, Ashley. So during the pandemic, the dog did not help much that day, let me tell you. This particular site was so bad, I think we only did about 10 foot on our transect. It was just so much trash. So it is totally okay to get out there and say, this is a lot. There's my little measuring rolly guy. And reduce that amount to something that's a little more doable for your situation. So we do have the data sheets online. We provide kind of these larger categories and then the specifics, hard plastic, and then we'll have specifics listed in there like bottles, bottle caps, fishing line. So our categories are hard and solid plastic, styrofoam, plastic, film, metal, glass, rubber, PPE, which came up at the very beginning of the project, paper, lumber, clothing, fabric, and we do have large hazardous material now. So you print one of these out, and I like to spread everything out and look like a little bit of a crazy person in the parking lot of a park. We'll just start sorting. So it's like, here's all our plastic ropes. Here's all our plastic bottles. Let's make a pile of our glass over here. And that's kind of my method for sorting. But you just got your categories and you start doing your tallies. You will notice that many of these have estimated fragments on top. It's impossible to pick up every tiny fragment at some of these sites as much as we'd like to. So you can take a visual estimate and just circle your fragments. One thing our volunteers have said is they have a little problem with figuring out how to do a GPS coordinate to figure out the transect, because we asked for your spatial spot. Where are you on Earth? So that we can do our analysis. So you can do this using Google or Apple Maps, and you just click that, open that app and click that blue dot that shows where you are. Swipe up from the bottom of the screen, and you should see your coordinates there that you can write down. So here's our typical audit setup. You can see we don't need a whole lot of supplies. We like to do it on a tarp like this, just because so many little pieces of trash get on the ground. It's easier to pick things up at the end. It's always windy here, I swear. So we've always got buckets to kind of put the edges down. But like I said, we sort them into categories, and generally it works best if you have one person working the clipboard and other people sorting and throwing things into a bag as they go. And they'll call out, hey, I have 8 plastic bottles. I have 3 beer cans, whatever. And we'll put those tally marks on the data sheet. Materials that we normally carry with us when we do these. This is the Dickinson Bay boat ramp. Always trash bags, clipboards. Make sure you got your data sheet with you. Although you can take the coordinates down, collect your trash, take it home and count it at home. Pencil, gloves. We like the trash grabbers to get to kind of hard to reach spots. You can either use a survey type roller like I have, or we have pre-cut pieces of 50-foot long or 100-foot long rope that we can use sometimes. We use a lot of buckets and baskets because let me tell you, Cheeto bags like to blow away and escape really easy. Like I said, we use the tarp, and we use a fish scale for weighing. Those fish scales run anywhere from $15 to about $30. We have a really, really good rough one that's been going for 3 years and is very abused. And I think it was like $25 at Academy. But once we do the TRANSECT and count everything, we'll put it back in the bag and weigh that bag. And that weight can help us do some calculations later. So just another shot of, I cannot remember the name of that dog, and he was an adorable dog that came with this volunteer that day. Just part of the pictures of the process here. Fishing line. Fishing line can be a problem. You know, if you have a big snarl like this, what do? Just try to estimate. So in this particular case, you've got different colors, different widths. You can say, well, that's probably 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's a blue one. Here's a white one. Just estimate what you can do. Okay. More pictures of the process. We get a lot of bottles with fishing line around them where people have been crabbing. We've had parts of computers, taco wrappers, so many aluminum taco wrappers. We found that areas where there's a fishing pier or a boat ramp, somewhere where people are kind of camping out and sitting for a long time, tends to have a lot of garbage. So if you're wondering about a place to start, look at your local fishing access point or boat ramp. So what do we do with all this? Well, you write it down and we put it in the Texas Litter Database. And this litter database was developed by HARC, the Houston Advanced Research Center. And it's a central state database. It doesn't belong to any one entity. Anyone can use it. Anyone can download data. Anyone can do whatever with it. We just ask that you say where you got the information. And we take multiple methods on it. So STOP is on here. The NOAA methods are on here. Information's on there for those of you that do kind of the TxDOT surveys. And again, those charts and data are for your use. I'm sorry, the cat is sitting beside me on the desk and just sneezed and scared me. I'm going to show you that database. And it's txlitter.org. And you can see we've got all kinds of information here for you. And we do have a lot of information online about how to use it. Some very good videos, how to make a login, how to enter your data, get started. We've got our field sheet on here. You can get a copy of that. We actually need to update that. This is an older version, but it still works. One second. I tell you, the Zoom bar is always in the way for me. Other things we can do here. I can look at my event list. Well, actually, I'm going to show you my dashboard. So once you sign up, here's my account. I can look at my trash reports. There's my old ones, and I can add a new one. So let's create a new one. So I'm just doing a test. And you can see, apparently we need more numbers. I can put in my organization. I can put in all of this information. And once I make an event, I'm going to cheat and show you my data. You can make a trash report, and I'm going to edit one of these old ones so you can see what it looks like with data in it. So I put in my coordinates. I can also use this locate option. So it can move around on the map, and you can just drop a pin if you didn't remember to write it down that day. My organization name. This is one we did with Keep Austin Beautiful. And it's pretty self-explanatory. We got 50 pounds of trash that day. And this was one where we audited a small subsample. You write down how many people there were, what method you used, and just different categories here that kind of are there to accommodate different folks. We did work with a lot of partners to get our categories on these to make sure that we had something that accommodated what most of our partners would need. But you see, you just drop these little guys down. Oops. So normally that would be closed, but because I have data there, it's not. But you can see all my categories, and I would just go through and type everything down. I can do a drop down menu here to find my estimates on my fragments, put it all in, get to the bottom, hit update, and that's it. That is all you have to do to enter trash data. Not too bad. So what do we do with this data? Why should I ask you to take your time to do this? Well, you've got to be pretty dedicated to do it in the first place, because digging through trash is not fun. I admit, you find some treasure every now and then, like our friend Dino. But yeah, let me show you what you can get out of the database though. So actually, before I do this, I want to show you on the database. I showed you how you would enter your data, but we also have this cool feature on here that shows a map of all of the surveys. So if I zoom in, I'll start to see individual ones, and I can see, it's actually my interns, some quick information on it. If I wanted to, I could actually do a data download of the entire database, which you can see at this point. This is individual numbers of items. It's kind of misleading. We've got a lot of volunteers on there so far, about 1,600 reports, and these are statewide. Plastic film's pretty popular. And there's our highest weight cleanup. These numbers are automatically updating all the time. We've got our map, and you can actually sort these and look for different types on the map, or you can look at a heat map. So, League City. You probably know what those were. But we also have these charts available. So if you're trying to do some really quick and dirty work for a presentation that you have coming up, you can actually use this information. So here, let's see, this column is going to be January, and you can see quickly how much has been picked up on these different trash types. We have different graphics, and all of these I can adjust the slider. So let's say I just wanted to look at October to, come on, let's say December. Okay, you're not helping. I guess that's a minimum. I can, look at the entire length of the project or just a few months. And that goes for all of these with the little sliders. I can look at recent composition. Again, I can go back in time and see how these change by month. And all of these are able to be saved. So let's say I fix this one, I get it the way I like. I want to know how much trash has been picked up in the last 6 months in Texas. I can hit the save button and download all this to my computer. If you do want to download the data, we do have a little bit of a disclaimer. We just ask that, you cite where you get it from. It's totally free for anybody to use, and you would download it. And you would actually get it. Now we're going on a tour of my computer today. Excel sheet popped up over here. You would actually get it looking like this. So I went through earlier, pulled out the information I need, but it's all there. You can see some of these don't have everything filled out because of the methods that they used, but I can download all this to use for whatever I need. If your kid needs a project for school, or you've got a college student that is wanting to do a little bit of work on marine debris, it's all here, ready to go. So just to show you what I can do with this data, I pulled a little subset. So I pulled data for Brazoria, Chambers, Fort Benton, Galveston, Harris, and Montgomery. And I pulled transects, or pulled reports that had 100-foot transect. There are others many others in the database. I just wanted to give you something really quick to see and up to date. So this subset that I'm showing you right now is 150 different locations and almost 199 separate transect surveys. So some of the sites were repeated, and it is important to repeat because we see, oh, I'm so sorry, the chat, I just caught it over here. We do see changes in a site over time. So the dates are going to range on this from February of 2020 to actually last month, what I'm about to show you. It's just 100-foot surveys, and just these 200-ish surveys had 23,000 individual items logged. So that works out to about 100 items per survey. Just saw the chat here, so I wanted to answer some of those really quick. Is there a plan to have an app? That's above my pay grade. I'm not sure. We are trying to make a newer website that's going to be really user-friendly. So it should be mobile web usable. That's probably going to come in the next year. Categories for different items, and I can answer some of these at the end. We look at hard plastic versus plastic film, and we do have a lot of the categories there for you already. We say it's plastic film if you can crunch it and crinkle it really easy, fold it up. If it does a little resistance, it's going to be hard plastic, and then we also do styrofoam. Back to this slide, I'm going to show you most of the surveys that I'm showing you right now are from Galveston and Harris County. That's where we have a couple of partners that have been doing a whole lot, including Splash, which if you haven't looked up Splash, that's stopping plastic and litter along shorelines, part of the American Bird Conservancy and the Gulf Coast Bird Observatory. Really cool project. But yeah, let's look at some stuff. All right, so of that little subset that I pulled, my broad categories, on average, in a 100-foot survey, and let's talk about a 100-foot survey. I was trying to find, I tried to find a metric that most people would understand and be able to visualize. Your average double cab pickup is about 20 foot long. So in Texas terms, if you lined up 5 pickups, bumper to bumper, that's about how long a transect is. So there, you've all got a good visualization now. So in that 100-foot, on average, I find about 64 pieces of hard plastic trash, about 3 whole styrofoam items, about 21 film items, 10 metal, not quite 1 rubber, always shoes, so many shoes. Glass isn't as big a deal. About 2 out of 3 sites are going to have a piece of PPE, either a rubber glove or a mask. Fabric, we see a lot of clothes. Large hazardous material includes things like when somebody dumps a washing machine, a toilet, bicycles, large boat batteries. I've seen it all. Batteries go in that category as well. And overall, I can expect to find 114 pieces of trash on a 100-foot transect, which is a pretty big deal. It's quite a bit. When I look at my more specific categories, I just pulled a couple of our common items for you to see. I can expect to find about 10 beverage bottles, plastic beverage bottles per 100-foot, about 20 bottle caps. The caps come off the bottles constantly. We always find more caps than bottles. About 7 cigarette butts, 10 pieces of fishing line, 3 straws, 3 or so styrofoam cups, plates. You can read that. I don't have to read it to you. One thing we find a lot of is food and drink wrappers, your Cheeto bags, your Reese's Cups wrapper, things like that. Not as many aluminum tin cans. You're just about guaranteed to find a flip-flop or a shoe sole everywhere you go. There's a lot of shoeless people here. And you can see about a 0.3 chance of finding a disposable glove or mask. Now, looking at these broad categories, I will be very upfront and tell you that this styrofoam and this film total is severely underestimated, because those two items fragment so much. We haven't incorporated the fragments yet into this final number, the fragment estimations. So I've got to figure out how to do my algebra right on that before I'll have a really solid number. So what you see here are actual items. The fragments will bump this up so much. That place on Breeze Bayou I showed you, it looks like snow, styrofoam snow along the bank sometimes. So here's it broken down and put in a pie chart for you. So hard plastic is this large blue hunk. I'm not sure why my little guy went away there. Films, a little bit smaller hunk, about 4,000 of those in the group that was found. All my little guys are off. I apologize for that. This is going to be rubber. Actually, no, it's going to be rubber, metal. It's a problem. Again, most of what we're finding is hard plastic, but I believe that number is going to change quite a bit once we get our fragments put in there correctly. We find some weird stuff, some really weird stuff. These are tab pool beer cans that were found in San Luis Pass in October of 2020. And the last pool tabs were made in 1980. We have shown Dino here. Dino was found in July 2020 on El Jardín Beach in Pasadena, and took him to a few folks at No Toys, and we estimate that he's probably from the 1970s. So you can find some treasure out there for real. Places to transect in particular that are bad for trash. This is Buffalo Bayou, the Houston Ship Channel. This is Breeze Bayou. Where we have one waterway meeting another, we always have a good backup of trash. Just the way the hydrology works, the water moves, it's going to pile up there. Likewise, wherever we have a bridge overpass, we're going to have a lot of trash. Incredible amounts of trash. We did the transect here under, this is the 59 bridge where it crosses the San Jacinto up by Humboldt. Great place for trash. And what are we doing with this in the end? So this is a really, really early map. All of these little black spots are trash surveys. And each one of those black spots we put into GIS, Geographic Information Systems program. And what we're trying to do with the colors is figure out what our numbers might be in between the points. So see, there's a lot of the higher number colors right here. Well, once you add some rivers, this is where Buffalo Bayou is coming in. This is where the Trinity is coming in. This is where all of Houston and all of these major roadways cross before they drain into the bay. So we are working on getting more black points all around the Galveston Bay area for our small model here in this project. Eventually, we'd love to do a model for the entire state, but that is what this data is going towards. So now I can talk to, once we, recreate this with more information, I can go and talk to local government and say, look, this is a particular problem. Let's talk about ways we could mitigate some of the trash. All right, so this is my big push. If you want to play with trash, I would love to talk to you. So I'm actually located in Pearland, and I go all over the north or the southeast Texas area. Sometimes I'm up in northeast Texas. I would love to talk to your group. We have funding right now for me to talk to your group and to get you doing this. You can actually go to my company website, blackcatgis.com. We have a form there. So blackcatgis.com/stop. We've got a form there that you can fill out if you're interested in getting training for yourself or for a group. Totally free, no cost to you. Sometimes we can provide supplies, but not always. So I don't want to promise that too much. But yeah, it's there. Call me. I want to go play with you in the trash. It'll be great. So here's some final contact info for those of you who would like to catch up with me. Again, the website for the database is txlitter.org. You can contact Black Cat GIS for training in the Houston area. Outside of Houston, you can contact Keep Texas Beautiful, but sometimes they route those to me. So if I can't do it, I do have a coworker in the Austin area. So we'll make it happen, whether via Zoom or virtual, we'll make it happen. There is my email address and my coworker, Leanne Wilde, who is here in the League City area, who does a lot of my outreach and volunteer training. So with that, I wanted to leave about 15 minutes for questions. And I see I've got a backlog here. Can the site make charts for individual events? I don't believe we can at this time. I haven't played a whole lot with the charts. In a future iteration of the charts, we should be able to have that. So we're actually going to be moving this database over to, sorry to jump into nerd speak, but ESRI's GIS platform. So it'll be really, really map based. And in the future, that should be done in the next year and a half. We should have the functionality to do individual events. I'm totally jealous of the person who found a bayonet because I have found not cool things many times. Dino's about the greatest thing I've found. Most of what we find is inappropriate. On that thought, though, when they were digging dredge spoil to clean out the channels around Tiki Island here close to Galveston Island, one of the comments was there were so many red Solo cups that the Tiki Island people just must love to party because there were so many red Solo cups on the bottom of the bay. So yeah, Edgewater Park, that's a great place. I'd love to chat with you later, Erica. We can totally get you going on sampling. Master Naturalist. So we have talked to the Galveston Bay area chapter and gotten ours approved for your Master Naturalist hours with that chapter. It's been on my to-do list to contact more Master Naturalist chapters and get on your approved volunteer hours list. So yes, please contact me. I will catch up with you. I see I've got a school teacher there. I do have lesson plans that will take your class through the scientific method where they create a hypothesis or they come up with a research question, do the hypothesis, do the sampling. So if you will email me, I will totally get you those lesson plans. And those are, for those of you in Texas, those are TEKS aligned. For those of you not in Texas, those are our standardized list of things that the hoops teachers have to jump through. For that last question, I would love to talk to the GOMA group. I like to hear myself talk, so I will talk anywhere, anytime. Have we published yet? No. So the model that we are finishing up right now as part of this EPA project is supposed to be done late spring, early summer. I am hoping to publish on that just because there's a lot of marine debris work done in oceans. There's not a whole lot done inland. And I guess even saying marine debris, we try to say aquatic trash. I'm in the habit of saying marine debris, but aquatic trash in the water, is not published as often. So especially with our bayou system and our drainage systems here down in the swamp, it'll be interesting to see. What work has been done in tracking the trash back to the source? Oh, Bridget, I know. I haven't got into that yet. So we are giving our information to Keep Texas Beautiful and to Texans for Clean Water. And those are both groups that interact with our state and local politicians. So hopefully some of this, if I can give them solid data that cannot be disputed, we can make change, but I need that data first. In terms of kind of on a small scale, we were doing a cleanup at a, I think it was called Buffalo Gap, or no, Buffalo Run Park, here around the west side of Houston area. And we kept finding these long pieces of plastic. At first I thought they were bands. They ended up being, when you see a shipping truck or shipping container, the container will be locked, but there will also be this plastic band that's fitted through the lock, so that if somebody has tried to break in, it's like a tamper resistant thing. And we just found so many of these, so many of them. Well, when I look on the map, right across the road is a huge shipping conglomerate and a lot of trucks coming in and out every day. So that was definitely our source in that situation of the little shipping tape. And we do need to go contact those folks and talk to them. I will plug another partner in crime, Nerdle Patrol. So Nerdle Patrol is run by Jace Tunnel down out of the Mission Aransas near. And Nerdle Patrol is actually looking at baby plastic. So that first picture I showed you of Dino in the hand with the little bitty balls of plastic, that's baby plastic that gets melted down and made into plastic bottles or whatnot. Nerdle Patrol is actually tracking those nurdles and how they move. Great project. Jace is a great speaker if you ever hear him talk. And they are trying to do some experiments to figure out the types of plastic and trace them back to different suppliers. But rest of that, nah, a little above my pay grade. Yes, balloons. Don't talk to me about balloons. I hate balloons. We always see a flush of balloons. I used to work on the Eastern Shore of Virginia, and we would see waves of balloons about 2 weeks after Mother's Day, about 2 weeks after Valentine's Day, after graduation, none for Father's Day. Nobody gives Father's Day. When everybody started to have birthdays towards the end of the summer, yeah, the balloons show up like 2 weeks, a week after the holiday. Really don't like. Are we connected or sharing data with Nerdle Patrol or Texas Stream Team? So I'll talk about Nerdle Patrol first. I just plugged Jace and Nerdle Patrol, great program. They're looking at what we call microplastics on kind of that smaller level. We're looking at macro. So I don't go smaller than a cigarette butt. So we're complementary, but not the same. We're both trying to get it up either way. I do see Jace quite a bit at different, and the Nerdle Patrol folks at different events, and we are presenting around each other. So we're aware of each other, but our data doesn't always interact that much. Texas Stream Team. We are in the process of working with Trash Free Waters, which is part of the EPA, to pull everybody in on one website and get everything going. That's again, maybe a year or two in the future. So yes, we are on Trash Free Texas Stream Team. This actually was kind of born out of an idea. People were doing sampling for Texas Stream Team, and they would write in the notes, this place is really trashy. There's, a abandoned van in the marsh now or whatever. So we tried to mine some of the Texas Stream Team data for some early info, and it kind of inspired us. So kind of, but not quite. Tips on selling these events to volunteers. That is a problem, because when you say, hey, you want to go dig through a bag of trash, not many folks are really into it. I try to push the data part. And honestly, I think once you start digging around and picking it up and actually thinking about the composition, it does make you think a lot. I'm not buying bottled water anymore. I do not pick up a straw. I'm tired of picking them up. So if you can figure out the way to get volunteers involved, do it. I'm trying to push the data and the science angle, really. Are there systematic direct observation techniques to understand individual litter behaviors? Oh, Kevin, we should write a grant. The Keep America Beautiful study had, and there was one in like 2008 and one in 2020. And the 2008 one is fascinating. I can totally see guys in lab coats jumping out of the bushes at McDonald's, going up to a guy and asking, why did you litter? In that study, it was really interesting. A third of the people that they watched litter and then asked them about littering said they never did it in their life. So first of all, we know it's bad. The other really cool finding from that 2008 paper was that physical versus kind of mental factors. Physical factors to littering: oh, there's not a garbage can, the place is already dirty, it's raining, I don't want to go throw it away. That was only like 15% of why people were littering. The reason they gave for littering, 85% was, I just don't care. So yeah, the behavior, how you make that behavioral shift to make people care, I don't know. That's a really cool research thought. I'm the Mac person. I'm the physical person that goes in and out of the bayou. But yeah, it would be really cool to do some camera studies. Let's see. We do have some balloon bans on different states. One of my alma maters is Clemson University, and Clemson used to turn loose a whole lot of balloons at the start of every football game. Thankfully, that has been stopped. But yep, really, really great. Whew. All right, I have 4 minutes, you guys. Hit me. Did I answer all my questions?
I think we have all of our questions. I did put in the chat our evaluation for today's webinar, so if y'all could please fill that out. That helps us give information back to the presenter, and a lot of us are educators and we understand the purpose of a great evaluation, and so please help us be able to share that. And then it also helps Alice and I plan our future webinars as well. And then I'm going to go ahead and plug next month's webinar is going to be with some professors at the University of Texas on their Planet 2050 project and some research that they're doing along climate change. So please go ahead and register for that webinar as well. I'm going to put the link in the chat for that. But Amanda, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciated it. It was a great presentation.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And please, y'all contact me, shoot me an email. We'll get you started. Really, really appreciate you coming today, despite the weather.
And then a few people said they didn't see the evaluation survey, so I'll put that in the chat again for y'all. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.